All right, welcome to the interview segment of Marketing Edge on TV. I have today the Director of Commercials, TVC Communications, in the person of Ronan Redmond. Thank you very much for your time, Ronan.
Thank you to you.
Ronan, we've been talking about COVID-19 for some time, but this time around, let's focus on advertising, which is your sector.
Yes.
Tell us what effect would you say COVID-19 pandemic, what has it had on this sector globally?
Oh, it's had an absolutely massive impact, simply because what seems to happen now, we're 5 weeks into a lockdown, we're a couple of months into the whole COVID-19 issue globally. So whilst we weren't quite sure what was going to happen 6 to 8 weeks ago, we've a better understanding of the impact it's having now because it's real. So effectively what's happened is economies have collapsed. There's been a huge downturn. Advertising works hand in hand with GDP, works hand in hand with the economy goes up, advertising spend goes up, and vice versa. So when there's a huge shock to the economy and a huge downturn in GDP, one of the first things that's impacted negatively is ad spend. So we're beginning to see, certainly in Europe and in the US, ad spend down 50-60% in March, in April. There was some suggestion that ad spend might come back later in the year. They were talking about this kind of V-shaped recovery where there'd be a dramatic downturn and then later in the year we'd see a comeback. The problem we have, the uncertainty we currently have is everyone is still unsure what's going to happen in terms of these stopping the lockdowns, coming out of the lockdowns. It still appears as if it's going to be a very phased coming out of the lockdowns. So things like live events, music events, sports events, don't appear as if they're going to happen in front of a live audience this year. That has a huge impact on sponsorship money. Sponsorship of what would have been around the Olympics, around the EPL, etc. We're still none the wiser as when those events will come back. So it's had a massive impact and it's going to have a very, very negative impact for the months ahead.
Let's now see how marketers will react to this global crisis. Well, how properly placed are you at this time?
Yeah, we look, I think initially it caught a lot of us really by surprise. So it has impacted certain media owners more so than others. So if we look at what's happening here in Lagos, we've had a lockdown for 5 weeks. It's just been extended now for another week. The shops are closed, so that means people are really managing their ad budgets. So on TV and radio, the audiences have grown up, have expanded simply because the more people are at home, they're consuming those. Advertisers know that, so that's where they're spending their money. People aren't traveling, they're not allowed to go on the road. So if you look at the out of home, if you look at the big outdoor sites, they've been turned off the last 5 weeks. That business has dropped by about 100%. If you look at something like DSTV and Supersports, which really survives on live events and big alcoholic advertisers chasing the EPL and male viewers. There's been none of that, so there's no advertising there. So certain media have been dramatically impacted. Other media like TVC, where we have a terrestrial channel, we've got a huge mass audience, likewise with our radio. We have seen a downturn, but it's nothing like compared to other media owners.
Okay, so already you touched on a company like TVC Communications, and now I'm looking at what do a company like this rely on in times like this when revenue, when ad spend is on the low side?
Yeah, well, what you do in times like this, I think we spoke about it before, in terms of managing we reach out first and foremost to all our clients and we let them know we're here for them. We emphasize the fact that we've got large audiences, particularly large audience at this point in time. We offer them flexibility. They require flexibility in these times when people are working from home. It's very hard to get work done. So we have found ourselves actually doing an awful lot more in terms of fulfilling the marketing role than oftentimes we would. We've had a client recently who is South African. A lot of their production facilities and their design services are in Johannesburg. They haven't been able, with the lockdown, to fill any of those. So we've taken those services in-house for them. So wherever we can, Tulu, we're helping media agencies our clients directly to, I suppose, fulfill whatever briefs they have currently. The other big area, and you've been across this yourself, is the response to COVID-19 in Lagos has relied an awful lot on big private investors helping. We've seen mobile companies, we've seen big food companies, we've seen banks all come together and create this massive fund to help the federal government, and also to help the Lagos government to fulfill what they need to in terms of easing the pressure on people. Now, it's important that everybody understands what these companies are trying to do. Then they create advertising messages around COVID-19, and our role as media partners is to make sure those messages get through to the right people, and we do that with advertising, or we do it through corporate communications on our news or on our business programs, and that's where a lot of our effort has gone in the last number of weeks.
You put up an article lately talking about this, doing an overview of what you should expect post COVID-19, talking about GDP of countries and all of that. Can you take us through what that message, what you're really trying to put out today?
Yeah, I can. But it's really, I suppose, look, this has been a global crisis. It's been a generational crisis. And now that we're a couple of months into it, everybody is taking stock, no matter what sector you're in, no matter what industry you're in, everybody is taking stock. And by that I mean they're reviewing what's gone on in the past, how could things have happened better, etc. It has been my opinion and my view as a European, but yet as somebody who's worked in this market for 3 years, I've never really felt that the advertising industry is fulfilling anything like its real potential in this market. And what I'm advocating when people ask me my views and what's going to happen post COVID-19, and not only COVID-19, we're also in the midst of a huge oil shock in terms of the price of oil, for many reasons. First, it started out with the trade war between Saudi Arabia and Russia, and that has now been exasperated simply because the demand for oil has fallen through the floor with COVID-19. So with these two massive shocks, it's a time now to take stock and say, how do we come out of this? And I suppose people have been asking my view as an outsider and a European, and I have presented them with what I believe is a 5-step plan for making the advertising industry in this market more relevant and putting it on a path to growth.